Welcome back to another episode of the Plate Up Podcast. This is episode 21. Once again, we are back. It is D High, the Coob, and JD Hugh. What is going on, fellas?
How's it going?
What is up?
Nothing much, my guys. Let's go ahead and jump on into this weekly catch up. I will go ahead and kick it off first. This week has been pretty chill for me, man. You know, little break in the routine. My missus finally had to go back to work after having our little one. So this was our first week back, which meant that all hell done broke loose in the High household because without the missus here to watch the little ones, that leaves dad in charge. And when dad is in charge, we all know how this dad goes, man. Dads don't necessarily just sit there and watch their kids. They listen for shit, that's going on in the background. Like, hey, what's that noise in there? And then they'll go and investigate. Like, that's how dads do their thing. So that's me. But I haven't really gotten in much gaming this week. I've only gotten to play Warzone for like maybe 2 hours tops this week. So a couple of games and man, I'm really jonesing for it, man. So I'm looking forward to my wife's off day so I can actually get some gaming in. But that is the week for me. I'm gonna kick it on over to the Cool. How's your week and what you been playing, brother?
I've had a week, let me tell you. I mean, work's been super busy. We ramped up one of our major projects, so I've been like on the phone all day, every day, and it has not been fun. But as for gaming, we've been doing some Warzone. These lobbies are getting rough. I tell you, they're just getting tougher and tougher. If they're not hackers everywhere, then it's just really good players in my kitty lobby, which is not really good. But the piece that really capped off my week was on Thursday. I was walking out to the mailbox to mail a package, and seemed to forget that I had steps off my front porch. Took a fall and sprained my ankle. So I have had my foot wrapped for the last 4 days. I am hobbling around like I'm a super old man, a little older than I already am. And it has not been fun, let me tell you. But weekend's been good. We kind of hung out, did not too much, and just trying to recover.
Mr. JD Hugh, how's your week and what you been playing, brother?
Hey, I've been doing pretty good. Hey, Coob, when you hit Alzheimer's age, man, you forget you got stairs places. I mean, next you'll forget that you have a dog and a wife, man. You gotta watch out the stairs. My week's been good. It started off, played a little bit of Warzone, played on Monday, and we played quads, and every single match but one had a hacker in it. Every single one of them had a hacker. It was absolutely ridiculous. Hated it. Copped off. Had a theory though. I said I think quads is the place that has the most hackers, and so me and Cooper ran some duos. Never ran into one hacker at all. Maybe wall hacks, but it's hard to tell on that one. But no actual aim bots and all that other stuff. So it was actually kind of refreshing to run a whole entire duos without running into a bunch of hackers. I actually got on Saturday and Sunday today, and hopped on and actually got a little bit of sniping practice in. So, went to Plunder and that new truck one that they got and just sat there and practice sniping the whole time. It was kind of nice. Also painted my house this weekend. So we're getting new siding put on. So I took the opportunity to get a paint gun, and I got primer on all the brick, and we're going to repaint the brick from green to gray, and then we're going to 3-tone it. So pretty busy in my household. And of course, it's my last week of work this week. And open enrollment ends on Monday. So just a whole bunch of fun stuff happening at this last clutch hour.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, that is it on the weekly catch up. And that is going to kick us on over into the news corner. So, Mr. JD Hugh, what news story you got for us, brother?
So we talked about Fear Street a couple of weeks ago. That Fear Street was coming to Netflix. Well, Fear Street came to Netflix and was with a resounding success. It appeared on Netflix's top viewing categories within, I think they said 20 or 30 minutes of it launching, and it's kind of just hovered around that area and stayed there. Now, the thing is, it appeals to people who are older, right? Because obviously these were books when we were teenagers, but also appeals to those who like good horror films and things like that. And it has drawn a huge crowd and a huge audience. Now, Netflix was prepared for this because they had talks with the producer ahead of time that, hey, if this really kicks off, we've got the rights to Fear Street. We want to continue to keep going because, as everybody knows who read the books, a lot of this just takes place in Shady Town anyway, or Shady Side, or whatever the hell the town is. So they obviously have real big success. Director said she's on board to continue to do this, and so it looks like we might be getting some more Fear Street in the future. She said she'd like to continue to work with the characters that she had worked with in the last 3 movies. I'm personally game. I watched all 3. I don't know if you guys did. Absolutely loved it. Me and Jenny made it a Friday night thing where we'd sit down on Friday night. We'd watch each one as they were released. I think they were released on maybe Thursday or Friday. And we just sat there and caught them. And it was good. It was kind of mindless TV. It's not like you had to really kind of put a lot together, but they got you on the 3rd one at the end with a good twist. So I thought it was well worth it.
They were really good. I was impressed because like Fear Street, teenager horror book, so you're not really expecting it to be that much. But this was like a full blown horror movie. All 3 of them, since there's 3 of them. A lot gorier than I thought it was going to be. I mean, all I'll say is bread slicer and like, oh my god. But I liked how they went back. So it starts in 1994 and then goes back to the 1976, I think, and then 1666, all the way back. But they kept going back to 1994 because that's the main story, and it's really cool how they did it. JD's right. There's a great twist at the end. He and I talked about it when I finished watching it. I said, you know what, this is pretty good. Then I got to the twist. I'm like, okay, that made up for the whole series. So I'm excited to see they're going to keep going with it. I think they have a lot of potential and a lot of material to pull from.
I haven't watched this yet, so but no, it's on my short list. Me and the wife are talking about sitting down and watching them together because we want to watch it together. She's just at work, and then we got to figure out a time when the kids can't interfere and and stop us from watching it. So we'll probably watch part 1 sometime this week. So I'll be able to talk about it on the next pod for sure. But I'm excited about it. I keep hearing really good things about Fear Street, so I'm very hyped on this.
And one of the things, though, so I got my mom hooked on it. So that should just show you how broad of a scope. She's nearing her 60s, and so she sat down and she watched it. And I told her, I say, look, it's not one that you can sit there and watch your phone and play. You got to pay attention to the storyline, or you're gonna miss out on some stuff. So she finally was like, oh, okay. So she finally put it down. She got back to me this weekend, and she was like, that was really good. The last one really, really twisted. And I was like, yeah. And just telling you, it appeals to a broad age group, so I'm hoping they continue because, like I said, I really like them, and I've heard really good things about it from everybody who has watched it.
And the 1976 one had that Friday the 13th feel to it, right? The camp, like the old 70s camp, and there's a killer loose. So, I mean, fans of Jason will like that version.
Yep.
Right on. Mr. Coov, your news story, please, sir.
Well, I'm going to take us to probably the biggest news story in gaming this week. Activision, the owners of Blizzard, the owners of Call of Duty, including Warzone, has done screwed up. They are getting sued by the state of California for gender discrimination and harassment against women in the workplace. And the claims that are lodged against them are extreme, ranging from men. The male workers will just play video games and delegate all their work to the female workers, doing nothing. They'll do cube crawls. Well, they will get drunk. They'll drink while they're in the office and then crawl under all the cubes, specifically the females' cubes, to get up under them and grope them and harass them. But I think what kind of really tipped it was a work trip. One of their female employees committed suicide just due to the abuse that she was getting. She was in a relationship with her male supervisor who brought, we'll keep it clean, who brought objects along for this trip and I guess pushed her over the edge. So a big lawsuit against them. Of course, they deny it. They didn't really deny the claims. They denied the way the claims were brought. So instead of attacking the claim saying, no, this is definitely not what's going on in Activision, they instead said, well, this third-party investigation company is not really the best, and I don't think they did their due diligence. And so it's kind of interesting that they didn't deny it. They attacked the party that brought the claims instead.
Well, that's the ultimate defense, man. I mean, that's how these high-powered attorneys play it. They know if you can't necessarily refute the claims, so you got to find a hole in there somewhere else. So you go to this third party company, you go look at other investigations they did and see, like, to the level they did those, and then say, see, they messed this one up. they probably messed ours up too, and and that's going to be the thing. I think it ends in a huge settlement, at some point, for as they say, an undisclosed amount. Like there's going to be some huge settlement at some point, but that's crazy that a company that big had this type of stuff going on for as long as they did. Because I mean, we're all gamers. Activision is a well-known studio. For them to allow this type of stuff, like some of the stuff you described, is just insane. And as they say in the article, frat boy sort of mentality there. That's crazy talk right there, man. This is a place of business. You crawling under people's desk and and harassing these women. Like, dude, your wallets are about to get hit big time.
Oh yeah. Slow clap.
Hoove has finally uncovered why nothing gets fixed in Warzone. They're always screwing around. They're drinking on the job. This is why when they implement updates, the whole freaking thing crashes and no one knows what's going on. Because they're over there drinking in the middle of the day, right? They're harassing women. They're dumping off their work. They're playing sex jokes. This is why this company is trash, okay? And why everybody gets so mad when they can't do anything right. They're spending all their free time doing stupid crap like this. And I've heard so many gamers, I mean, this is across the platform, that everybody's like, yes, we're going to continue to play Warzone. We've already bought it. We've already put the money in it. We're not going to screw ourselves over this. But the next Activision game that comes out, we're not spending our money on it. Now, we know streamers like to vocalize whenever they can, but what will they follow through on is the next question. Does this ultimately hit Activision in the wallet? Yes, absolutely it does. But does it impact them? When you have billions and billions and billions of dollars coming in off of games and stuff like that, does a $1 billion lawsuit really matter to you? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We don't know the insides of Activision and Blizzard. We do know they have a lot of successful games that they've launched here recently, starting with Diablo and going all the way through to World of Warcraft and all these other games. So does it truly impact them at the end of the day? I don't know. I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping that a company that has a culture like this is not tolerated. And I hope the state of California, as well as the federal government, comes in and lays the hammer on these people, because no one should have to go to work and deal with that. I work in HR. Kuv works in HR. We've all been there. We've all seen these type of things happen, and there's nothing that you can do faster than firing someone who's this bad. Now, obviously, this is a culture, which tells you that it's an internal issue starting from the management all the way down, because if it wasn't, the managers would have addressed this already, and they didn't. So obviously, it's acceptable behavior, and someone needs to lay the hammer down so that these women, and as well as anybody else that works there, nobody, regardless of their race, sex, education, none of that crap, should have to go through any kind of harassment war in the workplace. And that's just completely unacceptable. And I personally, as you can see how passionate I am, absolutely hate bullies. And so when I see crap like that, it absolutely fuels my anger.
Well said there, Mr. JD. That is going to bring up my news story. And on a little lighter note of things, talking about a good old Superman. So we know there's a Superman movie coming. It's going to be written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's going to be produced by J.J. Abrams. But we have another Superman project that was announced, totally separate from the movie that's being written. It's supposed to be a limited series, and it's going to be about Val-Zod. Not Kal-El, not the African-American version of Kal-El that's going to be in the movie, but this is going to be about Val-Zod, an actual black version of Superman in the comic books. And he is basically Kal-El's adopted brother. So, Jor-El and Laura, they adopted another kid, and he ends up, becoming the second Superman. He takes up the mantle and stuff. And so this is going to be produced by Michael B. Jordan. It's produced by him so far, but people are believing that he might actually star in it. It would make sense if he did, since it's only going to be a limited series. I'm interested in seeing that other take on Superman. So I think it's pretty cool that this is something they're working
I definitely like the character. I didn't know too much about him until he posted the article, and I went into a deep dive on him. So I'm kind of excited to see, this character now, be given some light. I guarantee there's going to be some confusion if they don't make it clear enough in the beginning. They're going to say, "Oh, this is Kal-El, just played, by Michael B. Jordan or an African American." And, now we have a black Superman, and be confused with the other project that's going on. But I did see, because I love scrolling through comments, because you get a lot of entertainment going through comments on these articles. There are people who are, and I'll post this out here to you guys, who feel that that you shouldn't modify a character's race just for the sake of modifying the race. So, for example, making Kal-El black just for the sake of saying you've now made Superman black, versus taking a character who in the comics is black. We know Nick Fury is a good example of that. Nick Fury in the comics is actually a white guy. And then in the 90s, when they relaunched the universe, they changed him to a black guy, and that's how we have Samuel Jackson playing him. So I'm going to ask you guys as your opinion, what do you think about changing the race of a character that is established in a comic that has not been rebooted with the universe or anything like that?
As a hardcore comic fan, I've always had this thought about it, which is if it's in the source material, that's what I want it to be. So if there's a whole team of characters and they're all white characters, I'm fine with that. I don't care. That to me, source material is there for a reason. The writers wrote it this way. This is what they wanted. I hate, the forced representation because it takes away from the story that I'm supposed to be getting from it. Like remember the Fantastic Four movie years ago. So they remixed the whole team. They had Michael B. Jordan playing the Human Torch. Mara Rooney was, Sue Storm, and it's like they're supposed to be brother and sister in the comic books, but they made them like adopted brother and sister for the movie. So it's like you completely changed decades of source material for what? For nothing. And before the movie even came out, it got bombarded. So I'm definitely on the side of sticking with source material. Now, like you said with Nick Fury, how they changed his character in the comic in the 90s, it was written into the comics under Marvel's banner. I'm cool with that. That just tells me there's alternate versions out there. But if it hasn't been written into the comics, don't touch it.
As a non-comic book fan, no problem with future superheroes being changed to skin color to whatever to fit the political dynamic at the time, right? I don't have a problem with that because the thing I have the biggest problem is when we have established characters and then we swap them, right, to a different race. And that kind of bugs me because I'm like, I already know this character. Now you've changed it for whatever reason. And I have this same issue with people who I have a set character and I don't care what skin color they are. And then they change it, right? And then they have another character play that guy. And I don't even like that. I'm like, if we started this franchise, like Spider-Man's a prime example of that, right? We've had like 300 Spider-Man. Stop. I need the same Spider-Man guy every time I come to the damn movie theater and not guessing who the hell he is. And if I have to watch another start from the beginning of Spider-Man, I'm going to lose my friggin' mind. Okay. All right. That's my personal take. If you want to let's just say Black Panther, right? Maybe he was a white guy and you changed him to a black guy. I have no problem with that because as a non-comic book fan, this is the new character, but you better keep that guy in the suit in my screen the entire time. So lock him in. All right. Lock him in Marvel for the next 50 years. I don't care. But that's what I want to see. For me, it's not really about skin color when they're introduced. I just want to see that same character. So, I mean, for you guys, like, let's just say we've never seen Superman. If they introduced to me Superman as a black guy, I'm 100% on board. Or even an Asian guy, whatever, right? I don't care. You introduce this character to me, I'm game with it, right? Just stay with that character.
That was my issue with the Superman movie announcement that they made was they're making him Kal-El. When there is actually a black Superman in the comic books. Like you could have just been Calvin Ellis and let him do that. You didn't have to change Kal-El. Kal-El this is a guy we know. We know this dude, but we don't know Calvin Ellis's story in the mainstream. Here's your chance to tell it, especially if you're promoting that we're hiring a black writer, we're gonna have a black Superman. Like if you're doing all this, why not just tell the story about the black Superman? Like, I don't get that part about it.
I mean, and to your point, D, it pulls the story away from Calvin, right? Here you're putting all your focus on Kal-El, a well-established from the 50s comic book character, and there's this perfect example of a black Superman right here who has his own stories, his own adventures, his own trials and tribulations, and you're pulling away from him to promote this other character that's been well established and just change the skin color because that's maybe what the political times call for. But I mean, I agree. I think they should have just done the movie on Calvin instead.
Yeah, I agree. Because then what happens here is I feel like a lot of fans look at this as like a subsect of like the real movies and all that, and you don't do this guy justice anyway. I think at the end of the day, everybody kind of writes him off as this like backfill, and for those die-hard fans, I think you like you said, there's a real story that can be told here. So why do this? It's just lazy writing, in my opinion. It's like why did we not go and find this line of the comic book story and bring it in, right? Because as a non-comic book fan, I'm listening here. I'm just going to be probably confused. I know, but if you bring me a whole nother backstory that this guy's like he did all this stuff and there's comic books I can follow about it, then I'm 100% on board. I'm digging it. I just
One of the bigger issues that I have with it, I'll leave it at this, is you. It didn't matter when you announced you're doing a Black Superman. There was always going to be pushback about that part. But you announce it literally when we're still trying to figure out if Henry Cavill is still going to continue to play the character.
yeah.
So you have that out there, and it's like, so they're both playing the same guy. One's black, one's white. But we don't know if the white guy is still coming back to play it again. But this one isn't connected to that same universe. Like, it's confusing as hell. And
Yeah.
I think you kind of like you kind of put confusion in casual fans and comic book fans because it's like, dude, what are you doing over there? WB is screwed right now. I don't know what they're doing with their characters. I'm waiting on the Flash movie to come out so they can reset everything and then just kind of start from scratch because WB is bugging right now, man.
I was to say this is a prime example of why DC Comics is sucking so bad, right? And why
Hmm.
the Snyder Cut had to come in and really kind of save the day because as a non-comic book fan, this universe has always been in shambles. I cannot tell you what is really going on in the DC universe. I can't. I can tell you that Snyder Cut was awesome. I can't tell you, and I can tell you Aquaman was awesome. Actually, I'm actually kind of looking forward to Aquaman too. But I can't tell you like the real stories behind there because there's been so many reboots and so many changes that I just can't track it. And whereas in the Marvel, I can tell you from start to finish where everybody came from and how they got there. Marvel has done a phenomenal job of laying it out. DC Comics, and as your point, Warner Brothers is just jacking this whole thing up, and this is why this franchise may never really get off the ground like Marvel did.
I mean, we've said it before on the pod. DC has some of the best storylines. They have the potential to be a Marvel killer if they do it right. But they don't have a Kevin Feige, leading the pack. They don't have someone with the creativity to map out this whole universe in a timeline. So they're just throwing it out there and seeing what sticks. And you're right, Jitty. They're gonna ruin the franchise. And I mean, I guarantee if you look at the comic book sales, Marvel probably outsells DC now. Just because everyone knows the Marvel universe as being successful and the DC being all over the board.
Yeah. That is it for the news corner this week, and that is going to bring us on in to the topic of this week. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's one thing we like to talk about as fans of shows and movies, it's our favorite theories. We always talk about, well, what if? What if this happened? What if this was a thing? Hey, I heard this behind the scenes. So this week we're going to be talking about some of our favorite fan and movie theories of all time. And I will go ahead and kick it off first. And we're going to start this isn't from a TV show. This is more of a sport because this theory has floated around forever and it bugs the hell out of me because it is absolutely idiotic, but it is so interesting that it must be spoke about on this podcast. And that is about the GOAT, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. The man played the game of basketball at the highest of levels. He's the absolute greatest to ever lace up a pair of shoes. And when he played and was drafted in 1984, he comes in, kicks ass, and all the way up until 1993, the man plays the game of basketball. His father is kidnapped and killed in a random robbery, and the man just couldn't take it anymore. He had just come off of winning his third championship, so what does he do? With that sadness in his heart, he decides to retire from the game of basketball. And while he is out of the game, rumors abound. He goes to play baseball for a while, and the rumor begins that Michael Jordan left the game of basketball to go sit up there, and he was suspended. They claim he was suspended from the game secretly because of a gambling addiction that he had. And they said that was also part of the reason his father was killed and all that stuff. And that is absolutely absurd. The man played baseball as a kid. His father was a huge baseball fan. So when he retired from the game of basketball, having won his third championship, he said he wanted to go attempt the game of baseball because that's what his father loved. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, this is a very interesting like one to dive into because I get it, right? Here you have a professional athlete at the peak of his career, shattering records, breaking all these championships, and then he just says, "I'm done." And I get that like breaks people's brains, right? They're like, "Wait, you're at the height of your career. Why are you still doing this? Or why are you leaving now?" But I mean, to your point, yeah, he just lost his father, who was a strong influence in his life and had a very strong bond with him. Of course, he's not emotionally ready to now put that into basketball anymore. But the gambling addiction, I've heard that one too. Even recently, Keegan Michael Key hosted SNL, and I think he did a whole skit of Michael Jordan missing a championship game because he was gambling in the hallways um, with one of the ushers and like stealing the usher's clothes and wedding ring and all this stuff. So I mean that theory has persisted all this time. Whether he had a gambling problem or not, I mean I don't know. When you get a lot of money, sometimes people like to gamble. But I don't think that's why he retired. I mean, he was making so much money with Nike and so much money as with the Bulls. I don't think it was a gambling issue, but it was just a man. He lost his father. That's a huge deal, and he just left because of it. And then came back. Once the Looney Tunes convinced him to come back.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? So we all know the NBA is not willing to risk all that kind of money and have this guy suspended, right? We know that whenever he could be sitting there bribing refs at this point, and we know from the NFL's history of ignoring cheaters that that would not ever be the case, right? I don't think that's the issue. I think this guy had a true traumatic event, right? He may be a gambler, and you know what? People probably seen him at the casino or something. They're like, "Oh, let me go ahead and add fuel to the fire here." I'm with you guys. I think it's obviously kind of crazy. Yes, there's probably a little bit of truth in it, which makes all these rumors that much better, right? If you can prove even a little bit of this story, then the conclusion is the whole thing's real. So, oh, he was a gambler. Told y'all, geez, right? So, I mean, I agree. I think anytime you have a traumatic experience like that, I can't imagine that you'd want to continue. I'm sure baseball was one of those things that he probably made a rash decision to retire from basketball, but he also wanted to do it because his dad was one of these fans, and he wanted to go ahead and kind of live out that portion of it and kind of be a version of way to get closer to his dad since he did basketball and whatnot. So I could see that being it, but yeah, I agree. I think it's a whole lot of hot air.
All right, Mr. Coob, your first theory, please, sir.
Well, I have two that's fairly related to each other, so I'm going to start with the smaller one of the two. And that is one of our friendly aliens that came down and ate Reese's Pieces has a little more power than we thought. I'm talking about E.T., the extraterrestrial, the Steven Spielberg classic. And the theory goes that E.T.'s actually a Jedi and that he crashed on Earth and he had to get back to the galaxy far, far away. The reasoning behind this is his ability to be empathic and detect issues. He was able to use force healing with his glowing finger. And he was able to see things like predict things that were going to happen well before they did. So like when they're trying to escape on the bicycle, he knew like where the people were coming from. And then of course, levitation, he makes the bicycle fly using the force. And for the longest time, this was just kind of a fun little thing until Star Wars The Phantom Menace, when we finally see a full shot of the Senate and all the various alien races. What's there? But ET's race is sitting there represented in the council. So this was kind of my first Star Wars theory. I'll have another one coming up later, but I always thought this was a fun one.
I like this theory, and I can buy into it as well, right? This is one of those you look at and you go, I can get behind this theory. First of all, he likes Reese's Pieces, and that just tells you that he's a Jedi, right? Because only Jedi eat Reese's Pieces because they're that smart. That's 200 IQ, right? So, but no, I agree that the levitation, the glowing finger, the force healing, all that stuff that ET did, I 100% can get behind it. I definitely could see character like that being inside the Star Wars universe, so it's not anything that's far-fetched for me. maybe it was a parallel universe, in a galaxy far, far away, where humans actually lived as well. So I 100% behind this theory. 100%.
Simple for me, man. Yeah, I saw him in the Senate. He's a Jedi. Like that's all I have to say about that, man. I think, I mean, it makes so much sense. His powers are extremely identical to Jedi powers, and when you lay him out like that back to back, it's like, damn, he did do that in the movie. He had force healing. He used levitation. The ability to read minds, all that stuff. Like it all makes sense. And then the fact, like they actually had his race in the Senate. So, E.T. was a Jedi. I don't need to hear anything else.
At least he's connected strongly to the Force, right? He may not have been a Master Jedi, but he was definitely connected to the Force.
He had some powers for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a low midichlorian count, but a count nonetheless. All right, Mr. JD, yours, please, sir.
All right, I'm going to keep mine in the Marvel Universe for right now. And that is the theory around Iron Man 2. And there was a kid that was saved towards the end of Iron Man 2, and everybody said that kid was Peter Parker. So I'm going to let you guys run with this first, kind of get your thoughts behind it, and then I'm going to give you an update behind this this item from the Marvel Universe itself.
So I know the update, but I'll save it. So my initial thoughts when I heard this theory was I had it confused when I first read it with the kid in Iron Man 2 that helps him, that helps Tony Stark rebuild. I had it confused with him, but that's already been confirmed, not because you see him at the end of Endgame as a completely separate character. But I love this idea that Spider-Man or Peter Parker was inspired to do everything he does because he was saved by Iron Man, and it really helps explain the loyalty he has to Tony and how he looks up to him as a hero and a mentor and this father figure, because we all know what happens to Uncle Ben. So I completely buy into this theory. I won't talk about the update. I'll let you do that, JD. But I'm all for that one.
I think when I first heard this theory years ago, this was kind of when my love for Marvel started turning into just pure obsession. Because it was if they're gonna give us Easter eggs like this, and then it be become a thing, then Marvel is the best at what they do. And they've proven, I mean, now at this point, they're masters of Easter eggs and all that stuff and just laying those breadcrumbs for you. So, dude, that was I love that. That's one of my favorite fan theories, comic book related by far, man.
Yep. So the update to this, Tom Holland actually confirmed after talking with Marvel headquarters that this kid was actually Spider-Man 2, and the reason they liked, or Spider-Man, the reason they liked this was because they liked the fact, obviously this takes place in Queens, where Spider-Man is and everything, and this event, this expo, he likely would have attended it anyway, because it was full of high-tech, cool stuff. So they like how Peter Parker is actually in the universe from a very early age. He's part of this game, he's part of this world, and eventually morphs into it. So they officially confirmed that this kid, who was saved by Iron Man, was Peter Parker.
I mean,
go ahead, man.
I'll say, and kudos to Tom Holland. He loves playing Spider-Man, and you can tell in all of his interviews, you can tell in everything he does. But for him to go out of his way to contact Marvel and say, hey, I want this obscure fan theory to be true because I love it so much. And then for them to go, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
The only thing I hope is that whoever originated that theory gets the credit they deserve, man. They deserve something. Whether it's just a credit in the, I don't know, if you go and put it in post, whatever, on Disney Plus in Iron Man 2, give that person credit, man, because that is to become so powerful with your fan theory that it actually becomes, they add it into the lore. That's every fan's dream, man. So that is tremendous, and I hope whoever made it gets the credit they deserve. That's awesome.
Well, and here's the other question: is this also the reason why Marvel started putting Easter eggs in there? Is because of fan theories like this? Iron Man 2 came out; it was relatively young. One of the first ones inside the Marvel universe at the time that kind of started the Avengers series and whatever the game was there. So did they sit here and they go, this fan theory took off and they go, hey, we can start dropping Easter eggs like this all over the place, right? And Loki is a good example of that. Are we playing around with the multiverse and how does that look? And and we start getting a lot of these little Easter eggs that lead into other things. And I'm wondering if this is like that idea that's just first started, and they're like, "Hey, we could do this and have some fun with it."
I would say it didn't start it, but it definitely turned up their Easter egg, switch a lot more to where they said, "Hey, man, we can just drop these shits wherever." Because now you got people on TikTok doing deep dives of movies and scenes now, like, "Hey, if you watch this, it references to this," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, you look like that meme from
It's Always Sunny.
yeah, It's Always Sunny, where dude's got the whole setup in the background. Like he's looking crazy. Like, so it's funny, man, but yeah, definitely Marvel has mastered the Easter egg at this point, and they don't mind dropping some shit like years in advance to say, "You'll be back. Don't worry. You'll look at this again. Don't worry." So
Well,
I mean,
what was one of them? It was like a photo in the background from like a particular angle of, it was either Iron Man or someone else, and then people went back to, I think, the first Avengers or Captain America, and saw a woman in the background taking a photo, and they realized, oh, okay, well, if you swap from her view, that's the photo that's all the way over here in the future in the background. And like Marvel said, yeah, that's right. And it's like, wow, just that
it's
this level of
crazy that they
detail.
put those details in there, and then they just leave them. Don't say a damn thing
Right.
until like a year or two later when somebody finally discovers it and goes, "Hey, did you know about this?" And Marvel's like, "Good find."
Yeah, right. Good job.
Good
We never
catch.
knew about that.
Or like even the recent one with Loki, he who remains suddenly looking off to the side and then syncing it up with WandaVision. And
Dude, that was beautiful, man.
that was awesome because like they had it down to the second they timed that out.
Did they confirm that?
Not officially,
Oh,
but
Not
Gotcha.
officially, but it's too big of a coincidence to
Right.
ignore it.
and
Yep.
I think that's getting into the multiverse too much, and they don't want to give too much away before they launch the whole
Yeah.
multiverse. So
Yeah.
they kind of said, "Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting." Winky face, it was kind of like one of those
Dude,
confirmations.
at this
Gotcha.
point, literally every scene is being dissected for Easter eggs now, man. I mean, remember when Loki first came on, like people were arguing, was that Peggy in the background being escorted by TVA agents and stuff?
Yep.
And so, like, it's like every scene is being broken down. You can't even, if you're a Marvel show, you can't show any numbers on screen without people Googling, what does those numbers mean? It references this comic, Thor number 365, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's crazy how people break that stuff down. I feel like I'm a comic fan, but I also feel like there's tiers of comic fans, and I'm way low on that ladder, baby. Like, I couldn't have a TikTok account dedicated to just debating other comic fans on shit, man.
No way.
Oh, that's going to bring me to my next theory. And this one absolutely terrified the shit out of me as a kid when I first heard this, because I heard it at school. And it was after I saw this movie, and that is Three Men and a Baby. I heard this at school because I remember seeing the movie and thinking that was a fun movie. Blah, 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 blah. I go to school, I'm telling my friends about it, and one of the kids goes, "Did you hear about the ghost in the movie?" The ghost? What the hell are you talking about? There was no ghost in the movie. Oh, yes, there was. If you go back to this scene, there's a ghost in the window. And so I go back and watch the movie again, and sure enough, there's a scene where I believe it's Ted Danson's mom comes to visit. And they're sitting in the living room talking, and the camera pans, and as it pans by a window, you see a little boy. It looks like a little boy's face in the window. And the camera keeps panning, and that's it. And I remember this thing being on. They were news stories were on it, all types of stuff. People were arguing this for years and years and years until it was finally confirmed that is not a damn ghost. It was one of the main actors. I believe it's Tom Selleck's cutout. They had a cardboard cutout of them in like suits and top hats, and his cardboard cutout, somebody forgot to remove it from the scene, and it ended up behind a window, and that's how it got in the scene.
It's the Starbucks cup, I tell you.
Yeah. it's the original Starbucks cup.
Right? I remember this one too growing up because I loved Three Men and a Baby. And then I never saw the ghost, and like people told me, oh, you have to go back and watch the scene. Like you said, I actually never saw it. I just didn't pay that much attention back then. But I mean, it's like the Wizard of Oz, right? The hanging munchkin in the background. Everyone said, "Oh, look, there's a munchkin that hung himself and he's swinging in the back," and it's like, no, they confirmed there was an animal that was in the back. But it's kind of fun to kind of think, okay, the set is haunted because I mean, Hollywood has had so many accidents. You know that there's some ghosts going on in Hollywood. So is this one of the ghosts that was in an accident showing up on a movie? But yeah, they did confirm that it was just a cardboard cutout. So that one's been debunked.
Yeah, I've never seen this movie at all. Actually, Three Men and a Baby, and I've never even heard of it until you posted this. But I did see the cutout of it, the top hat. I do agree how people definitely get that confused by a ghost, especially because the scene itself is not the clearest; it's kind of blurry.
That's what I'm saying.
But I agree. I mean, that's one of those things in post production that somebody should have caught and be like, "Hey, we need to put like a white screen up or something right here and just take this crap off," right? But no one did. It's just remarkable. You'll get to see sometimes the boomer mics. You can sometimes see them inside, and you're just like, what? Like who isn't paying enough attention when you're producing these things? But it is what it is. It's interesting. I wonder if they intentionally left it there, and now they're like, "Oh, it was a cutout. I didn't know."
I don't think they intentionally left it there, but it's not. I mean, one, people who go back and watch it now, it's not in 4K, so it's not like it's obvious. Back then, on VHS, nobody could fucking tell. That's why the rumor started in the first place. But you fast forward to today, a Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones world sticks out like a damn sore thumb. So I mean, obviously, I don't know of any frappuccinos in good old Westeros. So, I mean, that's going to stick out a lot more, or a water bottle, for example. Like, that type of stuff sticks out a lot more than a cardboard cutout just stuck behind a window in a movie from the 90s. So, but dude, I remember that terrifying the hell out of me when I first heard that.
I mean, that's a whole new category, right? We can do a podcast on that. Like things left in TVs and movie shows that shouldn't be there. Because I think of like Anaconda, right? Terrible movie, but kind of fun. Like the waterfall that flowed up because they had the film reversed.
Oh yeah.
And they put the wrong version.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Or I'll have everyone go back and watch an old Disney one. In The Rescuers, the naked woman in the background.
Yes.
That one of the animators snuck in there, and they never found out who that animator was. But I mean, yeah, that's a whole new category that we could definitely dive into.
Yes. Dude, for sure. I remember, the Rescuers for sure, and the Anaconda one. Because I remember watching it at home, and I looked at my dad. I was like, "Is that water going up?" He was like, "Yeah, what the hell?" Yeah, we could probably do a pod on like movie mistakes or TV mistakes like that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right on. All righty, Mr. Coov, your next one, please, sir.
All right. We talked about this one a couple weeks ago when it came to terrible twists or endings to movies and TVs, but it did spawn an entire conspiracy theory off of it. And I'm talking about the movie Grease. So the John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John movie, the musical. And the theory goes that Sandy, played by Olivia Newton-John, is actually dead the entire time in the movie. The reasoning behind this, or the thought behind this, is that in the song Summer Nights, when she says, "I almost drowned," he says, I saved her life, she almost drowned. The thought is that, no, she actually did drown. And everything that happens after that point is her kind of accepting death and starting to have like hallucinations as she goes. The reasons behind this conspiracy theory, which I don't think are all that outlandish, are one, she says she's from Australia and she moves to America and she joins the exact high school that has the exact person that she met over the summer. Everything seems to go her way. Like nothing really too bad happens to her. Every trouble that she runs into or any like conflict she has can be mirrored to one of the stages of grief. Excuse me. And then of course the famous ending, the car flies up into the heavens. And that is how the movie ends, because it is her accepting that what has happened and now she is finally crossing over.
I can buy into this. if there wasn't a Grease 2. I think prior to Grease 2 coming out, right, and we have a whole scene built around that, I think maybe you combined it. It's just weird that these girls would be talking to a ghost, right? Or are they imaginary as well? The girls that run around with Sandy, because I think that's a little weird. Because then all the other guys start talking to those girls, or I assume the guys are all ghosts too. I think we start getting into the details of it. It starts becoming a little bit harder to get control over. Right, I can if it was just John Travolta and Sandy, then I'm like, okay, I buy into this. But the whole thing has people running around, but when you look at it from that perspective, I kind of buy into it as well until Grease 2 came out, and then it just popped that balloon.
I'll file this one under somebody must have been high when they came because the biggest debunk part of it to me is it's a damn musical, man. It's meant to be happy-go-lucky, everybody jumping around and dancing and stuff. So I just kind of accept it for what it is. When I first heard this theory years ago, I'm like, that doesn't make any damn sense. But okay, I mean, I guess people just want to have their fun on the internet. I mean, but I can also say, in the right perspective, when you word things a certain way, I can see how people could say, yeah, she's been dead from this scene. So I could see it, and then like you said, the car flying off of the end is like kind of confirms, like, see, they're not in a regular living plane, they're in this astral plane, and look at them flying off in that car. Like, so I can see that. So a little weird though. This one might strike me as weird.
So, D, I need to say a quote from Olivia John Newton that kind of helps wrap up what you said. So she was asked later on about this theory, and she loved the idea that it's a zombie musical because everyone's dead, apparently. But here's the quote that she told TMZ. Quote, whoever made up the theory must have been on acid. Sandy was very much alive, end quote.
See, me and Olivia Newton-John, man, I knew it. Right on, right on. All right, Mr. JD Hugh, your next one, please, sir.
It always kills me when actors or actresses say that fans are on acid or high, because we all agree with them. All right. So my next one's going to be one that's a little controversial for those who watched the movie Inception. And at the very end of Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio spins the top. Now, the top is to tell him if the top topples over, because he only is the one who knows the weight. So if the top weight topples over, he's not in a dream, because obviously gravity pulled him down. But in the dream, because the dreamer doesn't know what the weight of the item is, it would just continue to spin. So at the very end, he finally gets home. He gets out of the dream. He goes and saves, I can't remember the head Asian guy from that electronic company or whatever. But he goes in there. He goes into the deep, deep levels, pulls him out. They come back alive. He gets through customs. He's allowed back to the United States. He hugs his family. He goes home. He spins the top. And then his kids call him. And unlike his memory where he forgot to look because the lawyer was trying to get him out the window or out the door, he turns around and runs off to the kids. But at the very end, the top is still spinning and spinning and spinning. And then it goes to black. So the theory is they never left the dream. He's still in a dream and he never landed in the United States. And he never ever got to see his kids. And he's stuck in this endless dream world where he'll never get to leave. Thoughts on that?
So this is definitely... Oh, go for it, D.
I 1000% buy into this fan theory that he never left the dream. That's how I interpreted the end of that movie. I've watched it several times. I've heard people's frustrations with the movie, and I walk away from it every time believing the same thing. He is still 7 layers deep or whatever. Like, he's still in there, man. And so it was part of the reason I always wanted a follow-up movie to it. Christopher Nolan doesn't do a lot of sequels outside of Batman and stuff like that. So, I would love to see a follow-up to Inception where he does realize he's in there still and he's trying to get out. Like, that would be awesome.
So I do not buy into this theory. I feel he is out of the dream and he is back in the real world. And here's my reasoning for it. And this bugged me about the movie when I first saw it. When he's teaching, I can't remember her name, the character about how the dream state works and how these little tokens work, so he makes a very fine point in saying you cannot touch another person's device. You cannot touch it because you don't know. You can mess it up. and that's just going to ruin everything. He really nails that in. Well, the top is not his, it's his wife's. So it wasn't his to start with. So after he drove this whole thing in that you cannot use someone else's, he's using someone else's. But there was a fan who caught something, and I need to go back and watch it and see if this is true. They say the way you can tell when he is in the dream world versus the real world is his wedding ring. When he's in the real world, he has his wedding ring on. When he's in the dream world, it's off. And this is just a little, very subtle visual clue to tell you what world he's in. And at the end of the movie, when he goes off to see his kids, he's wearing his wedding ring. So they say that means he's actually in the real world and he did get out. And that also explains that very slight wobble that you see on that top right before it goes to black. It just kind of wobbles a little bit, saying it was going to drop eventually.
See, I got to rewatch now.
So, and I want to say that this was asked to one of the producers, one of the lower level producers on set, and they confirmed that he is not in a dream. He actually makes it home to put a final end to the movie itself. I don't think that's going to stop the fans. Now, I did see the wobble, Kuv. I saw the wobble too, but inside one of his dreams, I saw a wobble too. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. But like you said, the wedding ring is kind of the giveaway for me as well. Not to say that he couldn't have one. If he truly believed he was going back to America and he put himself fully in there, then he would think, I have everything I need. I'm going to check. Maybe that's one of his other checks. And I do agree. I think the fact that it was his wife's kind of does kind of mess of the movie a little bit, because I'm like, you're supposed to have your own. Like, this guy had a weighted dice, and you're over here using your dead wife's spinner top that's always in your dreams, by the way. So I don't know. I agree. Just because the producer, a lower level producer, confirms it doesn't necessarily mean that's how it was written. It's obviously designed to keep fans guessing. I too loved this movie and wanted a part 2 to come out to kind of nail this down. Right? Was it true? Because if we go part 2 and he's immediately going and chasing down another job or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I buy into the fact that he got out. But if not, and we come in and he's running around, then everything seems to kind of get a little messy and a little weird, and then he catches on. Then I'm like, okay, it never ended. But we never got a part 2, and I know fans have been asking for a part 2, and I thought the cast was a fantastic cast for this. But given the popularity of some of the cast members today, I don't think you'd be able to get part 2 out of that without paying some big dollars on it.
That is going to bring me to my next theory, and this is probably one of the most debated movie, like, just details of all time. And that was what was in the briefcase. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Pulp Fiction. We know this because Quentin Tarantino has never given a definitive answer to it. The actors don't know what the hell was in there. It is all left up to interpretation. Quentin basically said whatever you imagine was in there, basically. So this kind of gives some breadth to this fan theory. And that fan theory is that Marcellus Wallace is the devil and his soul is in the briefcase, which is why so many people are fighting over this briefcase and trying to control it, because whoever controls it controls the devil and gets whatever they want. And so he sends his best guys after it, Jules and Vincent, to go get the briefcase to bring it back to him. And so Marcellus Wallace's soul is in this briefcase. It's just why it glows when people open it up and all that stuff. And that is the fan theory I present to you guys.
This is one of my favorite theories when it comes to movies, because I personally buy into it. I can definitely see it's his soul that's in there, and there's a couple supporting things for it, right? To open the briefcase, what's the combo? 666 in order to open it up. So that's already referencing, the devil's number. Then you have, Samuel Jackson's character quoting the Bible constantly to add more to the religion. And then there's the one scene where you first meet Wallace. He has a Band-Aid on the back of his neck. And people said, oh, well, why make that a point? And there's, I guess, a belief that when the devil takes your soul, he takes it from the back of your neck. And that's how he pulls it out of you. So the bandage on his back was where his soul left his body. And he's trying to get his soul back. I love it. I definitely buy in and say, yes, it's his soul. That's what they're all going for. Quentin Tarantino is definitely odd enough to do that. But I do like the backup theory as well, is that it's actually diamonds And because how Quentin likes to connect his whole world is in Reservoir Dogs, they stole a briefcase of diamonds, and they're saying, well, this is Marcel Wallace trying to get those diamonds. That doesn't explain why they grow orange, like that yellow orange. Diamonds don't glow that color. So I'm full in the camp of it's his soul.
Yeah, I think they did an interview with Roger Ebert back in the day, and he said, I think that's the guy's name, Roger Ebert, maybe. Anyway, but he said that it was just diamonds as well that was in there. I guess he helped co-produce Pulp Fiction. But to Ku's point, it's kind of dumb to have diamonds that glow yellow. If you would have got me if you said it's gold, right? It's gold and that was it. And I was like, okay, I could buy that. But you're telling me that you think it's diamonds? I think it's his soul.
The only reason I don't believe it was diamonds was because that's so simple. Quentin would have just said, "Yeah, it was diamonds."
Right.
Regardless of whatever color that glowed, he would have just said, "Yeah, it's diamonds." The fact like he keeps playing subtle on it and is like it's whatever you imagine it to be makes me think more.
Right. I like the theory because there's a lot that helps sell it, right? There's the 666 to get into the case. There's the Bible verses. The pulling the soul out from the back of the neck, I don't really buy into that part of it, but I do buy into the rest of it, right? Everybody's fighting over that. If it's just run-of-the-mill diamonds, how many people are going to be shooting each other and going after this case just to get diamonds, I mean, yeah, it may be a lot of money, but that's a lot of death, too, just to get some damn diamonds. So I think there's more to it. I'd like to believe in my world of worlds that it is the devil's soul, or his soul, and he gets to control, the devil. I buy into that 100%.
The biggest giveaway from it not being diamonds is everybody's reaction to opening the case. When they opened the case, they all looked like absolutely stunned and shocked. Like you take like Tim Roth when he's robbing the diner and Jules opens the case for him, and he looks inside the case and he's like looking shocked, and he's like, "Is that what I think it is?" And dude is like, "Yep." And he closes the briefcase and is like, "I can't give it to you." This is with a gun in his face. He's like, "I can't give it to you." So that tells you like, if it was diamonds, you could just say I got robbed for the diamonds.
Right.
But the devil's soul, nah, you're not getting that one up.
It's a great theory for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like
One
it
of my
100%.
favorites. All right, Mr. Coob, your next one, please, sir.
I'm about to ruin all y'all childhood. I am going to take a beloved Nickelodeon cartoon and show you how it's a lot more demented than you really think it is, according to this theory. Now, of course, it is a theory. I'm talking about Rugrats, and everyone knows the love of these babies. But the theory goes that Angelica, the oldest out of all the kids on the show, is actually imagining everything. And all the babies don't actually exist. And there's a reason why they are the way they are. So, for example, Chucky, the redheaded kid, the belief goes that he died along with his mother during childbirth. And that's why his father, Chaz, is always so nervous and panicky, and he's a wreck. He's like always protecting Chucky, because in reality, Chucky had died with his mom. Tommy, the main baby, was a stillborn, so did not survive the birth. And that's why Stu, the father, is always in the basement making toys for the son he never had. Because he's always tinkering with toys rather than playing with Tommy. He's in the basement instead making toys for Tommy. So that's the theory is that, well, Tommy didn't really survive, so he's making toys for his son. The DeVilles, who had the two twins, had an abortion. And since the children were never born, Angelica doesn't know, was it going to be a boy or a girl? So instead, you have the twins. You get one of each. And then they start tacking onto it with the all-grown-up version on how Angelica's mother died, and the mother that we see in Rugrats and the all-grown-up version is like this gold digger. So she kind of like goes crazy and gets into drugs, and that part I think got a little too extreme for me. But it's kind of fun to think of the idea on how these babies are actually Angelica's imagination. And when Dill was introduced, people thought that's it. This theory is over because Dill was born. We know Dill was born in the Rugrats movie. But how they explain that one away is that Dill doesn't respond to Angelica the same way as the other babies do. He doesn't listen to her. He doesn't like do everything she says. Like she commands him to do something and he doesn't do it. where all the other babies do. So the idea is that Dill is real. Dill is a real baby, but since he's not an imagination of Angelica, she doesn't have any control over him. There you go.
Good man. This is one dark ass theory.
It's a dark one.
Dude, man, when I first heard this theory years ago, I was like, this is proof that not everybody deserves the internet. Damn it. Like, people just get on the internet and they just let their imaginations run wild and they don't filter jack out and they will type it out there. And so this is one dark ass theory to a beloved kid show. So whoever wrote this, how dare you? How dare you? That is crazy, man. But I mean, like I said, under the right lens, any fan theory works. So
Yeah, I had to Google here real quick who the hell Dill was. I forgot who Dill was. I was like, Dill? And I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I have a struggle with this one. Kind of buy into it, I kind of don't. There's movies been made too, right? But I don't know. Like I said, I had tore feelings about it. Making Angelica, or whatever the hell her name was. Angelica, kind of crazy. I don't know. She was a little twisted, so I guess that kind of makes sense. But is she just being an older sister who was annoying because she always goes back and forth? I don't know. People just need to leave people with regrets alone, man. These are a bunch of little babies. Why you got me thinking that one is aborted and one died at birth and one's a stillborn? Why? Who sat around was like, man, I'm gonna really screw with some people. Like,
somebody's
just
got a dark
get off
soul out there.
Get off the acid, all right? How many deaths have to be around this girl for you all to be satisfied? I just want to know. I don't know. I'm poor on this one. I kind of see what the fans are talking about, but I also am like, it's Rugrats. I mean, that's like saying Gumby was really just a piece of gum that was spit out.
It's true. That one's true. It's confirmed. I mean, of course, Nickelodeon denies this one and says, no, it's not real. So, canon wise,
we're trying to sell toys over here.
It would be more disturbing if they confirmed it, right?
Oh,
yeah, right?
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, right? You see Nickelodeon come out going, how'd you guess?
Incredible. All right, Mr. J.D. Hugh, you're next one, please, sir.
Okay, so my next one is going to revolve around a very popular movie that is Men in Black. And the theory around here is that Men in Black is not actually protectors of Earth. These guys are actually just thugs and thieves that extort helpless little aliens to take their tech and then sell it to make millions of dollars. And we know this because we know that, you know, the Velcro and everything else that they've sold and made millions and millions of dollars on from alien technology that they themselves didn't get, but somehow acquired when aliens are trying to come to Earth. That's the fan theory around Men in Black, that these guys are not actually good people, but instead are no different than the run-of-the-mill gangsters from New York.
Saying a blacklisted government agency isn't on the up and up? Weird.
I think if you take this theory, replace Men in Black with America, replace the aliens with every other country, replace foreign tech or alien technology with oil, I see no difference. Basically, that's exactly what happened here, and it's a wild fan theory, especially seeing as how the whole plot it revolves around them sort of playing, world border to everybody, to all these alien, stuff and all that, and them recruiting agents and everything. I mean, it's a little far fetched, but I can also see the fun in this one of them saying they're just thugs who steal everybody's technology because they don't use Earth-based weapons. All their stuff is alien-based, so I can kind of see where that theory comes in.
I can buy into it that they're bullies because they talk about how they're funded by selling some alien technology that they acquired. And that's like what Velcro and like microwaves or something like that. But I can definitely see them kind of being bullies, but maybe more of like beating up not beating them up, but like taking advantage of the refugees that came to Earth to try to survive. I say fair game. If it was an invading alien force that was bent on destroying the Earth and they defeated them and kept their technology, that's just fair. I say there's no problem there. But if you're exploiting a refugee who's trying to seek asylum, I'm not on board with that. But I can buy into that theory.
So let's dissect a little bit. So they recruit, right? Just like gangsters. You got to go through an initiation, pass some tests, right? And then when they're trying to get information, remember that guy that had their head that regrew? How many times they shoot it off? They tortured him, right, in order to get the info that they wanted. And then they have mind erasing technology. And let's not forget about the mass surveillance of every refugee that came into Earth to make sure that they don't let the human population know.
So America, right on. All right. Well, that's going to bring me to my next theory. And this is one of my favorite fun theories from the best TV show of all time. This one, if you actually go watch the YouTube video on it, oh my God, this thing will have you walking away believing this fan theory is 100% true. We're talking about The Office and the theory that Toby was the Scranton Strangler all along. Dude, the video that lays out the evidence is so vast and accurate that you will literally believe this was like lore in the show and that it was fact. Because in the video they provide evidence that one, he was upset because he was so bullied at work by Michael, and this led to his growing anger and why he kept killing so many people around the Scranton area. Then the fact that one of the other facts was when he went to go actually visit the Scranton Strangler in prison, the Scranton Strangler realized he was the dude who set him up, which is why he choked Toby when he went to go visit. So all this stuff feeds into that theory that he was the Scranton Strangler, and I am on board for this one. This was one I wish was true.
I agree. I 100% can get behind this. He 100% is a strangler. Changed my mind. There's so much evidence here that points to him being the strangler. And let's not forget that, this video crew is not a real video crew in a setup comedy. They're there to record them as a documentary, right? That's how the show all starts. And I feel like the documentary accidentally captured the killer and they didn't even know it.
So this is a point of contention in the Goov household. So I am 100% on board that Toby is the Strangler. I work in HR. I know the stress he has to deal with. I can see him snapping. The Meg does not. She does not think it's Toby. She just thinks it's somebody else. And she points to that he went to visit the Strangler in the prison and that he got strangled. So it makes sense that whoever they caught was actually the Strangler. I follow like what you said, D. It's like, I think Toby went to kind of taunt the guy and say, oh, look, I got away with it and you took the blame. And the guy figured, all right, I'm just going to strangle you because I'm already convicted of it. There's a lot of other things. I haven't seen the video you watched, but I've heard a lot of explanations of this. Like the car chase, you see the car drive by super fast. And in previous episodes, you see that exact car in the parking lot. When the car chase is happening, Toby's not in the office. So I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing to it. His sudden departure to Puerto Rico right around when the trial happens because he touched Pam's leg and she asked him what he's doing. I don't buy it. I get it. He's an introverted guy, but I don't buy that to flee the country and go to Puerto Rico. He had alternative motives that he was doing for the sake of the camera crew that was there. But I buy into it 100%. This is a man who is tortured. His wife left him. His daughter doesn't really hang out with him anymore. Michael just tortures him to no end. I think he snapped and started killing people. And since the crew was there, really the documentary crew are the heroes, right? I think he would have killed the people in the office had the crew not been there filming every single thing they did. And Michael would have been the first victim for sure.
The biggest, one of the other bigger clues for me was the fact that remember how excited Toby was to be on the jury for the Scranton Strangler trial. And I just took that as he was so excited to be on the jury because he knew he got to put somebody away that wasn't him. So, I saw that as like more evidence, but that's one, man, I love that fan theory. When I first heard it, I was like, it makes sense, man. Like it really does when you put the breadcrumbs together. So
The the only thing that gave me pause, and I kind of explained it away in my head, is that he does say in an episode later on that he thinks they put the wrong person away. But I think that was him confessing. Like that was him kind of in a roundabout way saying, "Oh, I really think we put the wrong person away," and that's why he goes to the prison to talk to him. I think maybe a guilty conscience, or he didn't like the fact that he didn't get credit because here's a man who gets credit for nothing. So he was kind of saying, "No, it's the wrong person. You need to maybe look into this a little bit more." And I don't know.
I think when you look at all the evidence that's put out there, like if you go to the fan theories and you actually look at all the evidence documented line by line, you're just like, they put a lot of effort in trying to prove this case, and I can get behind it and I buy into it. So I agree. I think there's probably a little bit of a guilty conscience there. But also, anybody who ever has ever worked with people and know how people are being in HR, you can kind of tell that it doesn't take a whole lot to make people snap.
I know. All right, Mr. Koo, your next one, please, sir.
All right, I am going to talk about probably the most complicated, complex, twisted conspiracy theory I have ever read. And to be honest, I still don't 100% get it. I get it enough, but there's still parts of it that I'm like, maybe. And that's the Pixar universe theory. So this theory goes that every single Pixar movie is connected. It's all the same universe, and it's all on a specific timeline. So everything happens, from the past to the future. So the very high level of it, because there's a lot to it, it all starts with Brave. Granted, they have updated with The Good Dinosaur, but the main theory starts with Brave. Merida visits the old woman who has magic, right? And she talks about how this magic can change people into animals and can give inanimate objects life. What plays into it later. And then you see little carvings that this woman's doing, like the pizza truck that is known to be in every single Pixar movie. There's a little wooden pizza truck that she's been carving, where people think, oh, it's a fun cameo. Later on, it becomes part of this theory as to why it's there. But specifically focuses on the Will-o'-the-Wisp magic, and this introduced magic to the world. That leads to the Incredibles on the timeline back into the 1950s, where supers exist because this magic has imbued with humans and given them superpowers. And then you have the main villain who creates this technology, the 0 point technology, right, to control things, specifically inanimate objects. And this is a radiation wave that gets sent out there. So the theory goes that this is now released into the world, and inanimate objects start absorbing this 0 point energy and start coming to life. That leads to Toy Story. So now these inanimate objects are now alive, but they don't show humans that you're actually alive, which is why they always flop down when a human's coming. And then we see what happens in Toy Story 2 and 3 when humans aren't around the toys. They kind of start degrading a little bit and becoming a little more hostile. But then it moves forward to The Good Dinosaur showed that animals are intelligent, so we move into Finding Nemo. And here we have fish showing pure intelligence. But this introduces, Toy Story introduced B&L, company B&L, the batteries. But this showed B&L is also polluting the oceans. And this sets you up down the road for WALL-E. So WALL-E shows B&L has destroyed the Earth with their pollution. All the humans have fled. And all you have left is a robot who brings nature back. We already know this takes place in the future. And I'm skipping a few movies because this is a really long theory. So I skip Cars and I skip Up and everything that happens there. But after WALL-E comes Bugs Life, because now vegetation has returned. Bugs are more intelligent, which is why they have societies. And ultimately, they evolve and it leads to Monsters, Inc. So Monsters, Inc. is supposed to be taking place on Earth, but they use doors, right, to scare humans. How they explain that is that these doors are actually time-traveling doors. And you see that all the way back in Brave when she goes through a door. And the theory goes, and this is the cusp of it, is that Boo from Monsters, Inc. has always searched out for her monster, Sully. She wanted to get back to him. So she looked into these doors and she discovered the magic, and she discovered how to go back in time. And she thought she had to go back to find Sully, and she gets trapped back in the version of Brave. And how they link this is another carving on her desk is of Sully the monster. So the old woman in Brave is Boo, all the way from Monsters, Inc. That's the high level. And I know that was long. I kid you not. That's the high level summary of this whole theory.
I buy into this. One, I love Pixar films. And I mean, to furthermore on that theory, if you look in every single Pixar film that they've released, they've always left a small Easter egg as a clue to what the next Pixar film that's going to be released is going to be. So I 1000% believe in this. It makes sense that they're all connected, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Pixar comes out someday and says, "Yes, this is absolutely true."
I do not believe this. I am the complete opposite of this. First of all, in order to create a theory, if it takes you 17 books, 485 pages, 325 minutes to read, I don't believe it. Okay, because you're stretching. Okay, what makes it a little bit more sense is if you give me a fan theory that takes like 5 minutes to go, through like some of the ones that we covered. I even get into the ET's a Jedi. Come on now, but you sit here and you try and link these movies and like you said, I read some of the things. I stopped reading because I got tired. When you start going into cars and up and everything, I'm just like, y'all. Now I get this cameos and everything that are put into these films to kind of link the next film and whatnot. But are they in the same universe? Maybe. Are they in the same timeline? Doubtful.
So I find it funny that you say this is too drawn out for conspiracy theory, and I get it. I get exactly what you say. But you buy into Marvel, which has more movies, takes a lot more Easter eggs to explain everything, and goes into more detail than Pixar. But you're on board for that. But Pixar, that keeps it simplistic, you're not.
No, hold on. I didn't say I was on board for every fan theory that ever came out about Marvel. Right? We said I can buy into a couple of them, but you sit here like, okay, Peter Parker is in the thing. He wasn't originally in the script. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not young Peter Parker sitting here. And I'm like, nope, that was Peter Parker. It's just them going, you know what? That was a good twist. I'm going to go ahead and do it. You're sitting here saying that these entire, or not you, but the theory is that these entire Pixar films are all interlinked. Don't ruin Toy Story, all right? Back up.
It makes sense. They're both Disney. Well, now Marvel's Disney, but
If you want to start saying that they all belong to the Marvel timeline.
right. Woody is the next Iron Man. Just saying.
No, clearly Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, right.
All right, Mr. JD, your next one, please, sir.
Thought we were going to go more into that timeline there.
It's way too much.
Yeah, no.
It's an entire pod right there, man.
That is.
It really is one. It would be good to kind of break down some of these theories in more detail, I think. So I'm going to go for a lighter one and leave my main one for the last. And this lighter one is that John Wick is actually a Matrix training program. And so what we mean by that is all the moves that are made, this guy almost never dies, magically can get out of all these bullets that are shot at him, all these knives that are thrown at him, all these people stabbing him in subways and trying to shoot him. And, when he shoots inside of the train and all this other stuff, like, not a whole lot of people are running, and then you get around the corner and then everybody's just kind of lollygagging again. It's like the Matrix, right? Where, like, they start shooting and then people are just kind of like, and then they just go about their business because that's what they're programmed to do. Okay, so the fan theory is that John Wick is actually a Matrix training program, and you've all been watching 4 series of just the Matrix all over again.
I had never heard of this theory until you posted it on our board, and I looked it up, and I love it. I love every aspect of this theory. I personally take it a little step further. I think John Wick isn't just a training program. I think he's the one. Maybe not Neo, because we talk about there have been past iterations of the one, and they talk about that in the Matrix, and how ultimately at the end they sacrifice themselves and it resets and you get a new one. I think this is just a different iteration. He doesn't have quite the same powers that Neo has because he hasn't quite figured that part out. But you're right, he gets out of the worst things where like he should be dead. And I think what really drives that point home is the third one. Not the final fight, but right before he's fighting the 2 guys in that glass room, he was down. He was out. He was defeated. And the guys back off, let him stand up, brush himself off, and then continue to fight. Twice. They do that twice. You're telling me you're given the orders from your boss to kill John Wick, and you're going to stop when you have a sword at his throat and back off and let him get up, catch his breath, brush his suit off, get into a fighting stance and start all over? No, it's a training program. You're not meant to lose, so they kept them alive.
Well, I also can buy into this theory in part, and that's because of some of the ridiculous nature of some of the fights. Like I think about in part two when Common and Keanu Reeves are both walking in the subway and they're shooting through their coats at each other from an upper level and a lower level, and nobody's reacting to the bullets like ricocheting off the walls, like right in front of them and right behind them. Like they're just walking like, and nobody's blinking an eye. You know, like you said, there's full blown people running. If I saw somebody running full speed past me, I'm probably gonna break into a sprint too. Like nobody just stands around and watches people just run past. And especially if you hear gunfire, you know, these were like the calmest, you know, Samaritans ever. So I can 100% buy into this being part of the Matrix, especially a training program. That would be hilarious if, you know, if somehow that was like confirmed as like, yes, this is how the one is so good with his gunplay because he's been training, you know, and all this stuff. So that's pretty fun, man. I like that theory.
I mean,
Well, let's not forget Morpheus is also in there, right?
true.
As the
Yeah.
pigeon god.
And we never see all the training programs that Neo goes through. There's
Right.
that, you know, he does the first one, and then they just say, this man's a machine. He just goes nonstop. Well, there's all the John Wick training right there. And then he wakes up saying, I know Kung Fu. Well, that could have been one of the John Wicks. We don't know.
Well, that is going to bring me to my last theory, and that is going to bring me to probably one of the coolest theories that I wish with everything in my soul that this was confirmed, you know, after the fact, and it was what became to be. And that is about one of the greatest TV characters of all time, Walter White. And that this man, we all seen Breaking Bad, and in the series finale, it's debatable whether he died or not, but for the sake of this theory, the man lives and he escapes custody of the police. And what does he do? He changes his identity. And he leaves and moves to a whole nother state. Gets himself a wife, has some kids. Cue the start as him as Hal in the beginning of Malcolm in the Middle. Holy shit, this is one of my favorite fan theories of all time because it works out so well. If you take the ending of Breaking Bad and then into his character on Malcolm in the Middle, it works, and I absolutely love it.
I am 100% on board with this theory. I wish it was true as well. I wish somebody come out and just say, yes, that's the theory. Let's put it to bed. I love it. I love the fact that this all interlinks. The only thing that I wish is that they had a little bit more money on Malcolm in the Middle, and I think you sold me.
So I have not finished Breaking Bad. We know that. I'm still in the middle of watching it. And I've actually never watched Malcolm in the Middle, so I don't really have a reference point for that. But it added to the list. But I like the idea. Like, I love the concept of taking an R-rated show and attaching it to a G-rated show at the end of it. And it's the same character at the end. And it's happened in TV history, right? We have other TV shows that have done that, like was it Coach Carter or Welcome Back Kotter or something like that. He had an older show and that got canceled, and then they picked up this new show. And at the end of that one, he wakes up with his wife from the first show saying, I've had the weirdest dream. And that's how they ended the show. So they kind of did that length. So we have record of it happening. I would love that idea. If they confirmed it, it would probably make me watch them even more, like binge them a lot more, because I've been going back and forth between Breaking Bad and Stargate. But I like the idea of it.
All right, Mr. Coob, your last one, please, sir.
So I was really excited that I got able to claim this one. I don't know if you guys were going to, but this is my favorite. Out of all of them, this is my favorite. So, D, when you ask at the end which one is your favorite, here's my answer. This one here. This is the theory that there was a hidden Sith in the Star Wars universe the entire time. It is a Sith that was working behind the scenes in collaboration with Emperor Palpatine to kind of shape the future of really the rest of the Star Wars saga that we had. But it's a very unknown, unremarkable character, and that is that Jar Jar Binks is actually a Sith Lord the entire time. one of the most annoying characters in the Star Wars saga. He was well hated by the fans. There were hate groups made for this poor character. And rightfully so. He's kind of annoying. He's irritating. He was meant to be the comic relief, and it just didn't really land home. But the theory goes that his whole personality was a ruse to trick the Jedi into helping him and Palpatine's plan. So the theory goes that the reason why Palpatine and him are working together is that they're both from Naboo. So they're both on the same planet. And Jar Jar is already outcasted from his own people. So he went over to the human side, met Palpatine, and they came up with this plan. So his clumsiness, his act, or pretty much his clumsiness and his attitude is all fake. And we've seen this in Star Wars already. When you first meet Yoda, he's kind of this goofball and this little annoying troll within the swamp. And then he finally falls into his Jedi character as the Yoda that we all know. So we've kind of seen that already. There's evidence of Jar Jar doing the somersaults and the flips that the Jedi do using the Force. He does the exact same flips. He got into the Senate, and when it came time to vote to give Palpatine absolute power, Jar Jar was the first one to stand up and say, yes, he needs absolute power over the Republic. He needs to rule this whole thing. So that was the culmination of the plan coming together. And then the other big one that this one really sets for me, especially because I went back and watched it to see this, he uses hand gestures to use mind control. So you always know Obi-Wan saying, these are not the droids you're looking for. If you watch, every time Jar Jar needed to convince the Jedi or convince somebody, he would do a hand gesture. It wasn't as fine set as two fingers in the air, but you would see his hand wave, and then he would say something, and the person would go, yeah, okay, let's do that. So this is my favorite conspiracy theory. I have a follow-up to it, but I'll let you guys talk first.
Well, we know the dark side never has to do everything as pristine and as crisp as the good side, right? So they just kind of nod, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, I'm going to follow you now, right? Whereas the good side's like, you have to believe, right? And so I feel like this kind of fits in. I do agree the flips and everything that he does. I buy into this fan theory really, really hard. I don't think any character in Star Wars is as dumb as this character. And he's playing. You know he's playing along. He goes, oh, me not? No. Yeah, you do. Stop playing it, right? They should have just asked them off in the first one, and that would in episode 1, and that would have been the end of this foolishness, right? But instead, they wanted him around. His little floppy ears looks like a beagle, right? He's lying. He's a Sith Lord. He's out to kill the Republic, and y'all just witnessed it.
Nisa think that theory is bullshit. I hate that theory so much, man. It's almost like somebody loved Jar Jar and was like, I have to find a way to save him in the eyes of Star Wars fans. So how about making him this secret Sith Lord in disguise? No, we're not gonna do that, man. We're not gonna try to save and grace this piece of crap. Jar Jar is one of the worst things that ever happened to that franchise. He almost tanked the entire franchise alone. People hated Jar Jar Binks so much. The actor got hatred for it. So much so that any rumors that he may return, he's been getting fresh hate mail. It's they really, truly hate this character to the core. If for some reason Disney decided, yeah, let's go ahead and confirm that fan theory and say he was a Sith the whole time, there would be a riot on their hands. The House of Mouse would get burned to the ground. Dude, I do not like that theory at all, dude.
So for me, I was in the camp of I hated Jar Jar. You're right. He almost ruined the first movie between him and the actor that played Anakin. The Phantom Menace I thought was a terrible Star Wars movie in terms of acting. But I have to say, I think this fan theory kind of redeems Jar Jar in my eyes. I buy into it. I can see it because to JD's point, there is no way there is a creature this stupid that survives the way he does. There's just no way. Because, if he's really that dumb to where he gets his foot caught on a blaster, swings it around and takes out 15 droids, you're telling me that that's just by pure luck? There's no way he survived as long as he has. I am fully into it that he is Force sensitive. He's a Sith Lord. and that he was just always meant to be an apprentice and never the master that Palpatine was. So my follow-up was they did interview George Lucas sometime after this theory came out, and they asked him what he thought about it. And George Lucas didn't confirm it. He didn't say yes or no. He kind of pulled a Quentin Tarantino. But he did say, Jar Jar is my favorite character that I've created for Star Wars. And he goes, and I believe he is the key to this entire saga. So he didn't confirm it, but I feel like that's saying he had such a major role in making this saga go through that was his subtle way of saying yes. Like, or if not yes, he's a Sith. Yes, he had more influence than people think. I think he was executed poorly, I think is what it was. I think the voice was over the top. I think the character was a little over the top, and that got the hate he got. Because you look in episodes 2 and 3, he pulls a Yoda. He's very stoic. He's very calm. He's more wise. He doesn't have this goofy, oh my God, look at me, like attitude. He's just kind of like, I'm a senator now. He's kind of pulled that Yoda to where what I showed you before wasn't really me. Here's the true me.
They did dial him back.
And this is why I believe he's a Sith Lord, right? Because none of his other people are that stupid, right? But they elect them, right? It's like the dumbest man on their planet. They're like, that's our senator right there. It's not America, okay? This is a real world that elected this guy to go represent them in the Republic, and nobody in the right man sitting at home with their little floppy ears, and they're all talking at the table and goes, no, Jar Jar's our man. No, he's like, I'm your man. And they're like, he's our man. I do hate Jar Jar, so this...
Yes, I hate him, but I buy into it.
That might be a little bit of why I'm driving that fan theory so hard.
All right, Mr. J.D. Hugh, bring us home, sir.
And my last one, which is my favorite theory of all, because I kind of feel like it can actually work and it actually happens. The timelines aren't too far apart, and that is Kevin from Home Alone turns into Jigsaw. The theory is, obviously, Kevin is very young. He gets left and abandoned at a young age, right, which would drive anybody crazy, right? And he's from a large family. He's not recognized as one of these outcasts type of things, right? Always in trouble, kind of a troubled youth type person, right? And then what happens when a couple of people come to burglarize his home? He sets up all kinds of death traps, right? We got spiders following. We got ice everywhere. We got cans of paint whacking people's heads. And if it was a Saw movie, it would have just been a blade. That's all it would have been. So the theory is Kevin from Home Alone turns into Jigsaw. What's your thoughts, boys?
I ride with this theory. This is my absolute favorite fan theory of all time, too. When I first heard this, I said, that is fantastic. Whoever wrote that deserves the slow standing ovation and everything, because that is a true to life theory right there, man. Like, the natural progression is there. A kid that is left home alone twice develops these contraptions all on his own and absolutely destroys his kid. So it makes sense that because of those contraptions, the kid may grow up with some sort of engineering background. That leads into him becoming Jigsaw. And Jigsaw, we saw what he does with his contraptions and the way he tortures people. It makes sense. And then on top of that, he only goes after people that have wronged others. So it makes perfect sense, man. This is my absolute favorite fan theory of all time. And Kevin McAllister could have been the perfect Jigsaw.
So again, this was one I hadn't heard of until you put it on the board, and I was like giddy excited to look into this one because I love Home Alone. I love Kevin McAllister, like one of my favorite Christmas movies. So for him, again, G-rated going to R, like I was into it. I dove into it, and it does make perfect sense. Like he only went after the bad guys who wronged other people and gave them the opportunity to, right themselves by going through this elaborate horror show. And I think what really settled it for me is that later, Macaulay Culkin did like Kevin Older. He did a little short video on YouTube where like he's in a cab and I don't remember the full thing, but he talks about this extravagant death trap that he's going to set up. And it's very R-rated, but it's Macaulay Culkin playing Kevin McAllister. He said, yes, this is the character. And It's like very bloody. It's very gory. It's like he's kidnapped. That's what it was. He was in a cabin. He's kidnapped, and he like tricks these kidnappers and like kills them, and this in this gruesome way. So it just kind of was that link between Home Alone and Saw to bring it together. And granted, and funny enough, the actor that plays Marv did a follow-up video to it where he's like panicked and scared. He's like, Harry, did you see what he did? I have fear for my life. Harry, there's someone at the door. And like, it was so funny, but it's a perfect link to show Kevin becoming Jigsaw.
I saw that video you're talking about, and it was, yeah, Daniel Stern had reprised his role to come in there and kind of play into what Macaulay Culkin was doing. So that was pretty cool. But it makes sense when you think about the Kevin McAllister character, because he would have PTSD from being left home alone twice. He'd have mental health issues growing up and all that stuff. Because a kid that has that sort of imagination to torture robbers, I don't think has many friends growing up. So that would make sense that he would grow up as a smart kid who's like very, intuitive and can create stuff, and becomes this guy, this dude, John, who engineers some of the most elaborate death traps ever. But like you said, gives people a chance to correct their wrongs, right their wrongs, pay a price, but right their wrongs and possibly get out alive. So it makes sense, and I'm riding with that theory 100%. That is my favorite theory of all time because it connects so well together.
And let's not forget what triggered the guy in Saw to break begin with. And it was his one friend that he had, his wife, dies of cancer. No one helps her. And that's what sparks the anger and the outrage and what begins the whole series.
Because he's now left home alone.
That's right.
Full circle, baby.
That's right.
Right on, right on.
So some could call Saw Home Alone 3.
No, they did a Home Alone 3. I don't recommend
I know,
it.
it was disappointment. I've seen it.
Well, that is it for the topic this week. And man, this has been a really good one. I guess we don't have to go around and ask what everybody's favorite ones are because we all talked about them already. But what are some of your favorite fan theories of all time? And we want to hear your answers. And you can give us those answers by reaching out to us at podcastplayedup@gmail.com. At Played Up Podcast on Twitter. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Played Up Podcast. You can listen each week on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you do listen, we ask that you rate and subscribe to us. Let us know how we're doing because it really helps us out and we enjoy the feedback, baby. But next week, please join us. We're going to jump back into them games again. Episode 22, we're going to be talking about our favorite multiplayer games of all time. So we're going to be jumping into some deep lists on those and bringing up some old classic multiplayer games. Just some classics for you. You might hear some repeats from previous podcasts, but that's okay. We'll go in depth, baby. We'll do it for you. That is going to be it for episode 21 of the Played Up Podcast. I'm D High. That's the Coov. That's JD Hugh. We'll catch you next time. And as always, don't forget to play up.